6 years ago, Ellis Hammond's entire mission changed. He was a full-time college pastor with vision and passion, but broke. Now a full-time real estate entrepreneur, Ellis is the founder of Kingdom Real Estate Investors, the #1 community for faith-driven leaders impacting the world through real estate investing. If you're a kingdom-minded real estate investor or entrepreneur seeking to advance God's kingdom outside the church walls, welcome to the Kingdom REI podcast, where Ellis interviews Christian entrepreneurs and investors focused on advancing God's kingdom through real estate investing. Enjoy the show.
Hey, welcome everyone to the Kingdom Real Estate Investor Podcast. I'm your host, Ellis Hammond, and as always, my co-host, Cameron Roy. What's up, my man?
Hello, my brother. I just now realized you and I look like we went shopping together.
That's actually so true.
Our shirts are there's almost it must be the same. Let's wear them to Orlando. That'd be great.
But you must have been doing some bicep workouts because you got the short sleeve. I'm rocking the long sleeve.
A little bit.
That's phenomenal. Speaking of which, guys, if you're not following Kingdom Real Estate Investors on YouTube, this is the only way to see what Cameron and I are wearing each week. And so I encourage you to go check out our YouTube channel as well. And Cameron, I will see you next week in Dallas. Looking forward to it.
Oh, I can't wait. I love it.
Guys, we have the privilege of having Mike Morawski on the show. Actually, Mike, I didn't properly ask you how to say your last name, and it is kind of a doozy. Did I get that right?
Yeah, you did get it right. And I love the shirt. If you guys would have called me, I have one in my closet.
Yeah. Hey, we'll give you a few minutes if you need to go change, and we can start the show over.
Be a great powwow.
Well, as always, have a privilege of bringing on experienced veteran real estate investors, folks who've been in this industry for a long time, who are doing deals, who have a lot to share from a real estate perspective, but maybe more importantly, from a kingdom perspective, who've been following Christ for a long time and have ups and downs with that as well. And so really grateful to have Mike on the show today, man. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me. It's been a while and certainly been looking forward to this.
Yeah. So we're going to get into his story today. Guys, just a little bit about his background. He's, purchased, transacted on several hundred millions of real estate. He's a capital raiser. He's a coach. He's done a lot in sales, just a lot you're going to get from this episode. I think even his story of kind of the challenges of a real estate career and how to really rely and lean on your faith is going to be really important. I think especially in today's environment where, man, we got some, Mike will talk about this, right? We've probably got some bumps and bruises ahead of us for those listening, which that's going to be really important. So before we start, let me pray and we'll jump in. So Father in heaven, we thank you just for this time. And I pray for all those who are listening, God, that this would be next 30, 40 minutes would be a time of inspiration, encouragement, ultimately, God, that would point them closer to you, that their faith would grow stronger because I know that we need that in these coming and trying times. So God, I just pray for a double portion of your spirit. God, just like you gave to Solomon, Lord, I pray that you would give us a double portion of your spirit, your wisdom, your grace, faith today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Tell us today, before we kind of back up, just a snapshot of who you serve today and kind of activity as a real estate investor.
Hey, the first thing I got to say is, 300 podcasts, and this is the first one anybody's ever prayed with me as we started. So appreciate you guys.
Yeah, man.
It's a big deal. So who do I serve today? I serve Jesus, number one. So if we start there. And, I really serve the real estate investor. My goal is to teach the real estate investor who's either coming into the business green and wants to be in the multifamily space, or the single family investor who's been involved in fix and flip or buy and hold for a number of years, and they know what the economies of scale and multifamily can bring. So whether they're on the active side, wanting to do the business themselves, or on the passive side where they are actually investing money with a sponsor like I am.
But you're also actively growing a portfolio as well. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep. We actually are growing a portfolio and continually, that's why I said passive, those passive investors that want to invest money and see returns, mid-teens and
Where's most of your portfolio at today? Where are you guys buying deals?
Florida,
Oh,
right?
cool.
Florida, but been underwriting in the primary markets in Texas quite a bit. Probably just the last 2 weeks alone, underwritten maybe 25 deals.
Yeah.
And
Well, you're in the right place, man. If you like Dallas,
yeah,
Cameron lives in Dallas, and we just closed on 200 units last month. So we love the Dallas market for
Mm.
sure. So I'm curious, are you of the mindset like we are that bigger is better? Is that kind of why you coach this now?
yeah, not necessarily. Uh,
Okay.
Two things that I don't subscribe to anymore, and I didn't, I did in my past was bigger is better and faster is better. Neither one makes sense. I grew a company way too fast previously, and had some bumps and bruises, as you would say, along the way as a result of that. So I think being methodical today, I think making smart purchase decisions, making, especially in the changing environment we're in with, interest rates being as high as they are and cap rates still being as compressed as they are, that it doesn't make sense to grow too big too fast.
From an asset level standpoint, though, I mean, you're focused on multifamily now, but I know you had some time in the residential. Kind of, what was that journey like, and why have you landed though in the kind of the larger multifamily deals?
So when you ask what the journey was like, you mean between single family to multifamily?
I mean, was that part of it? Kind of, did you start there and then get into larger acquisitions?
I was a residential agent for about 15 years. So I had a contracting business. I'm in Chicago. I had a general contracting business and just burned out on it. Woke up one morning, looked at my wife and said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And while I was in the construction business, though, I did a lot of work for a couple of large syndicators here in Chicago. So I understood the model. I understood you raise private equity from individuals, you marry it with a great real estate deal, you stay in the middle. Long as everything goes well, you do well.
Right.
I went into real estate, and the thing I heard years ago from Jim Rohn was that success leaves clues. So, I sold that contracting business, took a year off. And as an entrepreneur, you never really take time off. My wife and I, at the time, we bought a two flat, we house hacked it, did another one. But along the way, I met a real estate agent who, always made a memorable impression on me and was very successful. Went to him, said, I'd like to go into business. He encouraged me. I went into the business, and in my first 9 months in the residential side, I sold 78 houses. I went on to build a team selling 125 homes a year, and did that for about 12 years. I in 2005, I saw the market was starting to shift, not really sure what was going to happen, but I knew that I wasn't going to continue to keep the production up on the residential side that I was doing. So that's when I made that switch and went into the multifamily space. And it's funny because, people say, how do you get started today? And I say, I just thought about it for a long time. I had a dream and a goal to be in that business, to build a large company. And I just took that plunge. I went out, I bought a small 11 unit deal in outside of Chicago. And, I put it under contract, and all of a sudden I was faced with the fact, man, I need to raise some money. How am I going to do this? Put a little classified ad in the newspaper. And this is back, I'm dating myself.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's hilarious. That's great.
And all the ad said was real estate investors wanted, and my phone rang off the hook for like 5 days. Over the next 7 months, I raised like almost $600,000, but we got that deal closed and the next one, and I was off to the races. Over the next 30 months, I raised $18 million, bought $60 million worth of real estate, 4,000 apartments in 5 markets, big footprint in Dallas, huge footprint in the Dallas Fort Worth market. And then built a property management company at the same time, where we were managing about 7,500 units. Built a company pretty close to $100 million in value. So long answer to your question, but the question was, how'd you get into how'd you make the transition? I just did it. I knew what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. And I just kind of followed the next right thing. And if I didn't know something, I asked somebody, or I went and got the answer I needed to get. So I always did enough to move me forward.
Yeah.
So
So
achiever.
I'm curious, like, you were there early. I mean, even what you just said, a big footprint in Dallas, and you bought $60 million. I mean, even think about price per door back then, it's probably a lot different than it was now. So it's like, even knowing how many units you just said in that purchase price, I'm like, that doesn't quite add up today. But I understand things are a lot different today than they were even a decade ago, right? Or 15 years ago. Like, I am curious, so like you're looking at deals today, you're an entrepreneur, man, you're a business owner, you're helping other people break into this space as well, which I love. What is a similar challenge that you, or hurdle that you're helping people overcome, and what's different? Does that make sense? Like, what's evolved and what's new that you're like, oh, this is a different challenge today, but and maybe what's a similar one?
More people in the space today. You said early on, and there weren't a lot of syndicators out there. It seems like today that everybody's a syndicator. Everybody's out, so I think that there's so many people in the market trying to fight for deals that it's causing prices to go up higher. You talk about being a different environment. I wrote the book Exit Plan, and somebody read it and they called me right when they were done reading it, and they said, "Did you really buy that deal for a 13 cap?" Now, this is a deal in Dallas off of Post Oak Road. It was like 450 units. I said, "Yeah, why?" He goes, "We just talked about it, about the difference in times, right? Back then, that was a 13 cap. Today, I know the guy who bought it a year ago, the same deal, and it was a 4 cap. So what I paid $15 million for, he paid somewhere upwards of 60. So, hey, real estate goes up in value.
So, question for you: why'd you sell? Why'd you ever sell? What was the? What
That's what I
happened?
was about to ask.
Yeah, got forced to sell, right? I mean, just 2008 rolled around, and it was like hitting a freight train or hitting a brick wall in a freight train. We imploded. So I had this company that we grew way too fast. So we were very unstable. This is what, the 2 questions you asked at the beginning, I said, don't grow too fast, and bigger is not always better. We grew way too fast and very unstable as a company. So when the economy changed in 2008 and the CMBS markets fell out and all the bad paper on Wall Street and the stock market crashed and all the foreclosures happened, I thought, hey, that's the residential stuff. It's not going to affect the commercial business. All those people that are losing their houses are going to need a place to live, and they're going to live in our apartments. Well, part of that was true, but the other part was that our occupancies by 2009, 2010 had dropped way out. So our NOI had dropped and we couldn't pay the bills. So I had 38 different, companies. I had 38 different properties, and I had some that were performing better than others, some that were not performing as well. I thought, so the whole context around this was I thought we were in a recession. A typical recession will last 17 or 18 months, 10 or 12% correction, boom, you're back to normal. Well, that thing lasted 7 or 8 years with a 40% correction in the market. So how do you weather the storm? Well, I thought that if I took money from well-run companies, put it into poorly run companies or poorly profitable companies, that I could keep the whole ship afloat. So, I had probably a dozen deals. I should have just let go to foreclosure, let some investors get hurt, but I didn't want anybody to get hurt. So I started moving money back and forth. Matter of fact, my accountant and my attorney both said, it's okay to do that. Just leave a paper trail. When the markets come back, put the money back. Well, I moved money back and forth. 2010, got to a point where, things really were off the rails. I wound up being indicted on wire fraud and mail fraud charges for non-disclosure. So it was okay to move the money back and forth. Actually, business owners do that a lot, but I just didn't disclose it to my investors. So for not disclosing it to my investors, I got charged on wire fraud, mail fraud charges, and sentenced to 10 years in federal prison. So 2013, and I always tell people, I say, look, I never flew private. I didn't have a big boat. I didn't buy a fancy house. I didn't have a fancy car. I was home every night for dinner, grew my kids up in the church. I, had a great marriage, and I got ripped from that to live in a 12 by 12 room with 3 men I didn't know, nor did I like, wondering what the hell happened in my life.
And how long did you actually serve that sentence, that term?
Just under 8 years. So I went to prison in 13 and came home just when they closed the world down for the pandemic. So it was a little over 7 years. I was gone, and it was life-changing, right? So I went to prison. I thought, man, my life's over. It can't get any worse than this. And I was probably in prison about 3 weeks, and my wife decided she was going to leave me, and it wrecked me. The joke in prison at the time was, take his shoelaces because we think he's going to hurt himself. You guys, I think we all have defining moments in our life, right? And we have more than one, but we really have to pay attention to them. Sometimes it's just that small little whisper from God that we need to listen to. And so about 6 weeks in, I'd gotten divorce papers, I didn't know how I'd get through today, much less 10 years. And I walk in the gym one day, and I always tell people, I say, look, I was just window shopping. I wasn't looking to buy anything. I wasn't looking to pick up a weight. I'd gone from running marathons to being 35 pounds overweight. I hated myself, didn't know how to get through it. This guy walks up to me in the gym that day, and he says, hey, don't let these people beat you. All they want to do is take from you everything you've ever known. They can take your business, they can take your money, they can destroy your world, turn your family inside out. But what they can't take is who you are and what you're made of. They can't take your knowledge and your desire to grow and to do something different. He goes, you can get it all back. You can get that 10 years back. He goes, look, start coming to my class every day, start working out. You'll lose weight. You'll feel better. And I don't know what it is to this day. I don't know what it was, but it's like somebody flipped a switch. And I said, okay. I started going to the gym, started working out, losing weight, wound up going to college. I got a bachelor's degree in theology. I wrote 2 books. One is Exit Plan, Your Complete Guide to Multifamily Investing and Why You Need an Exit Plan Before You Buy. I wrote an ethics course. I taught real estate investing, property management, and ethics in prison for 6 years. I was on an outreach program, went into the community, told my story to small business owners and local college students. I met a professor at the University of Minnesota while I was in prison, and he and I co-authored a paper together that we had published in the Business Journal of Ethics. It gets taught at the collegiate level today for forensic accounting and sales and marketing classes. I'm home today. I'm in the coaching and training business. I teach people not to make the mistakes I made, how to build a business. And I got recently, or last year, I should say, I got approved by the SEC to go back, be an issuer of securities, a sponsor of deals. And we're back doing deals again.
Yeah, well, I'm curious, like, what was that like? Because then you got to come back out and fight the SEC again, right? To even be able to do this.
Wasn't a fight, man. And here's what's interesting. I never even thought about it. So we're working with a securities attorney out of Boulder on this deal we're putting together. And she says to me one day, she goes, hey, why don't I go to the SEC and see if we can't get you approved? I said, have at it. And we never talked about it again. 3 months later, she comes back. She says, hey, look what I got. Written letter. And all they wanted me to do was disclose it for a year. in documents. And I said, damn, just tell them I'll disclose it forever. I want people to know, you know, I mean, I don't have anything to hide. I'm very transparent. And I don't know that I would have been. I was doing a podcast one day. Oh man, I probably was home about a year, and I was doing a podcast, and there were about 100 people on this podcast, and it was a meetup group. And somebody out of clear blue nowhere says, "Hey, are you raising capital yet?" I said, "No." They said, "Well, let me know when you are, because I don't know that I'd want to invest with anybody other than you, because you've already made the mistakes. You know what not to do." And it was like, it clicked for me. It was like, well, maybe this is something that I can do again.
I find you very open, very transparent to your story, because a lot of guys could come in here and not share any of this and just talk about your experience. Hard to kind of cover up 7 years, but you could probably do it though. I'm curious from and maybe we'll start with the faith standpoint. Like, what allows you to be like, how did you overcome just the fear of like what others would think, that identity of like, man, I am, tech, quote unquote, behind bars for fraud, or non-disclosure, whatever they want to call it, but like feeling like a fraud, right? And then being able to be transparent on a podcast like this, or in business or in life, like what clicked? And I understand that story too, but like even go deeper than that.
Yeah. So I think a couple things clicked along the way. Probably the first 5 years I was gone, I never had any idea I'd go back, try and raise money, and then, after that, I had, really had done a lot of work on myself. I had been a Christian since 1983. But I always tell people I was a pocket Christian, right? And I pulled God out of my pocket when I needed him. I'd be in a jam, help me out of this. I think what happened was that God said, man, I want your full undivided attention today. None of this just when you need me anymore. So I think I went through this experience where he had the ability to tear my cold, dead fingers off of everything that I thought was important in my life, one finger at a time. He took everything from me. I mean, even today, I still have kids that don't talk to me, and a brother that won't talk to me. Nothing is totally right or perfect, but I believe that because of my faith and because of the journey through, getting a degree in theology, all the Bible studies I taught in prison, the hours and hours in prayer, solitude, writing, journaling, I think that the shift occurred in that, right? I don't know if that answers your question.
No, that's really good. That's really good. And the other thing that I want to ask you is like, Mike, you've lost more than most people will lose in a lifetime in terms of 7 years in prison, wife, talk about your kid, your brother. What do you, for those who maybe feel like they're back against the wall, but like they haven't lost that, they haven't lost what you've lost yet, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is the, like, because I've been there recently, right? Where it's like, man, hope's kind of lost, backs against the wall, fighting the good fight. What do you, like, what's your message?
Yeah, I think my message at the deep core is you can't let your past define your future. I might have been in a prison behind a wall. I might have not been able to, do what people who have liberty do, but I was free, right? I still had freedom. We all have freedom, but here's what happens to people. I think people get trapped in their own mind, and whether it's alcoholism, drug abuse, gambling addictions, whether it's past physical, emotional, sexual abuse, whatever it is, there's people that get trapped and they can't get out, and they think they're stuck and they can't move forward. And I want people to understand that you don't have to stay stuck, that there's a way beyond that. I have totally had to give my life to Christ and totally trust in him, and walk this whole journey with him, right? And trust that he's got my back, because I I have no control, right? I mean, I can take the necessary steps. I can underwrite the deal. I can talk to people about capital. I can go to contract on a deal, but I don't have any control, right? And I think so many of us are just locked in an internal prison in ourselves, that we're stuck by fear, stuck by doubt, and we don't have to let that stuff bother us. Just, it's like you asked me earlier what the transition was between residential and multifamily. I just did it, right? There was no transition. I didn't think about it. I didn't write a business plan. I went out, I started looking at apartment buildings with a guy, and I put an offer in on something. Now, I didn't do it right, and I learned by those challenges and needed to do the next one differently, which I did. But, I think it's the journey.
Well, all that you're saying, Mike, yeah, and Ellis, just thanks for the transparency. Like, podcasts like this are just amazing, and we love people being transparent, especially if their story has a lot to do with crashing and burning and coming to Christ in a significant way, if they're either for the first time or for the 10,000th time. And what you're saying about your past doesn't have to define you. It just made me think about the parable of the prodigal son. Like, he just wandered off and took all of his father's inheritance, pretty much wishing his father dead. And when he came back to his father, scripture says that he came to his senses and realized, even my father's hired hands, his servants, are living better than I am. Surely I can just be one of those guys. And he comes back to his father, and his father from a distance sees him. And it says he got up and ran and greeted his son and fell on his neck and kissed him. Well, back in the day, patriarchs didn't just get up and run and bare their legs. That would consider like a shameful act. And so the only thing that could prompt a father to run to his son who squandered and shamed the family is that the entire time, all he was wanting was his son to turn around and come back. There was no get up out of the seat and say, well, this ought to be good. We'll see what he has to say. It was just a full embrace of the son returning, not shaming him of his past, not condemning him of what he just did, the treason against the family he committed. And the son ran back to his father and got around good community. And you're talking about that guy in the gym. It's just like, sometimes we just need someone to champion for us. We need a good brother or sister in business in Christ. And then at the end of the day, we all need the Lord to just have a better hope for our future that does not have to be indicative of our past. And I just applaud you so much. I mean, it has been such a short amount of time since you've come out of that hard season, and you have done so much. And I would say God's done so much in you, but it's clear like the catalyst for you was a person in the gym who just saw something in you that you probably couldn't see in yourself at the time.
Yeah. Hey, I have a quick story to that, right? So about, I don't know, 8-9 months ago, that guy who told me that day in the gym was on Facebook, and, I see him all the time, and we, chat once in a while, but you could tell that there was something going on in his life that just wasn't clicking for him. I sent him a message and I said, hey, I don't know if you remember this or not, but I was in prison, just a short time, and you walked over to me that day in the gym, and I said, you really helped me change my life. And, a lot of where I'm at today is because of that conversation with you. He shot me back a message, and he goes, I never remembered that. And he goes, but I want you to know that I needed that more today than anything else in the world. He goes, I just have been in a terrible place, and it helped me a lot. So, it's kind of funny because
came full circle,
right? Exactly.
That's beautiful, man.
That's awesome. All right, Mike, fire around here, man, just because I want to ask you a couple questions about, it's interesting that we started this thing with newspaper ad. Yeah. Like, the world has changed, my brother. Like, raising money has changed, right? Like, in the way that we raise money. What do you like? So let's talk about that. You came outside of COVID, right before COVID, you're raising capital. What does that look like for you? Like, what's effective? What have you learned breaking back into this space, raising money again, that what is different, what's working, kind of what are you even coaching your students in terms of how to do this business all over again, really in a whole different era, a different technology, space of technology, methods, podcasts. I mean, podcasts, dude, wasn't even a thing in 2008. I mean, I'm sure it was there, but definitely not to the rise that it's had today, right? So what does that look like for you today? And because I want to hear your perspective because it's fresh, right? Like you come in, it's like, oh, well, like the 2012 Jobs Act didn't happen while you were in prison. So give us your perspective now being in this business and what you find, what's effective.
So I'll give you a couple of comparisons. I went to prison. We were on iPhone 2. I came home. We were on 12, just getting ready to launch 13. A guy in prison came in after me and went home before me. And before he went home, he said, call me when you get out, handed me a piece of paper. And I looked at it. I said, what's this? This isn't a phone number. He goes, no, that's my IG address. I said, what's IG? He goes, you'll figure it out when you get home. And, so what works today, first of all, I do a lot on social media. I think what I'm figuring out is that you got to figure out one medium that works and go make that medium work, whether it's, a YouTube channel or whether it's an Instagram page, whatever it is, make that medium work. You've got to talk to people. See,
hey, real quick, what's that medium for you? What are you using going all in on?
Yeah, so I got a wide shotgun right now between all the channels, and I'm going to start to narrow that focus down. For me, it's going to be LinkedIn and YouTube, because I do a couple of different podcasts and, got a lot of content and keep pushing that out. And then LinkedIn, just, meeting people and talking to people, in 2 years, I've grown my LinkedIn database, 9,000 people. I think I've had 3,000 Zoom calls, not including podcasts and things like that. So here's what I know. You have to prospect, right? You have to talk to people and you have to build relationships. None of this happens unless you have relationships with people. I said earlier, I went in the real estate residential side and I sold 78 houses my first 9 months in the business. That's because I prospected every day. I knew that if I made 20,000 dials a year on the telephone, that I'd sell 125 listings a year. So I knew every time I picked up the phone, I'd make $8. It's the same thing with raising capital. You've got to make enough phone calls, talk to enough people, build enough relationships, have enough one-on-one meetings, get to know people. People need to know you, like you, and trust you, right? And that's part of why I'm transparent. I want people to know everything about me. I don't have anything to hide. You don't know how many of these podcasts I get on. People go, is there anything we can't talk about? I don't know, because you need to know everything. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. And I love that, it comes down, I'd say this, our whole tagline with King REI is you're one connection away. And, these mediums that we have, Instagram, podcasts, et cetera, LinkedIn, it just helps. I think we've lost that idea, so I love your perspective in that, like, those are just modes to help you make more connections faster, eat more, a lot more easier. You can jump on Zoom. But it's interesting how, like, folks who maybe have come into this, didn't have your experience before, miss the connection piece. It's almost like those modes are ways to avoid the connecting, right? It's like, and I feel like that's the difference maker. And those who I think are doing it well are using these, these platforms to make the connections, because that's really what drives our business forward. And so I appreciate that. It's a really good perspective.
When people don't answer the phone today, because I don't think people know how to communicate, right? I know my kids, like, it's all text, right? And I have 5 kids, and my 2 middle ones I haven't talked to in years, but my older one I have a great relationship with, and my younger ones, we have a good relationship, but all we do is text. Where's the intimacy? Where's the level of communication? Where's the getting to know people? So here's what I do. I'll call you. If you don't answer the phone, I immediately send you a video text. Because I want to get in your space. I want to get in your world, And so whether I'm following up or I'm prospecting, dialing for dollars, whatever it is, I want to get in to that person's space. So I'll video text, I'll send an email, I'll call.
That's good. Cameron, anything for the fire round, man?
No question. I would just acknowledge that video text. We learned that from a guy who trained one of our Orlando breakouts last year. His name's Scott, and I was talking to him on the side, and he talked about video text for the exact reason that you were just talking about, Mike. And I can attest it works well. And I have received more quick callbacks from sending a quick video text. And it could be so simple and so quick. Hey, sorry, I just missed you. Just thinking about you. I want to talk to you about this real quick. Holler back whenever you get a chance. They feel more pressure than to call you back.
Right.
Yeah. Mike, man, how can we support you? Like, I want to make sure folks know how to get in touch with you and kind of continue to follow your journey. Where's the best way to go do that?
Yeah, sure. I appreciate that. So if anybody wants to grab the book Exit Plan, you can either get that on my website or you can do a free download and just go to mycoreintentions.com/free, and you can download a copy for yourself. You can reach me at mike@mycoreintentions.com. And I invite anybody to reach out to me. I love the network. I love to talk to people. If you have questions, if you're on a journey and you need guidance, help, direction, I'm more than willing to spend some time with you. So
awesome, man. Well, again, we appreciate just your support here, showing up powerfully, showing up transparently. So we're grateful for you, man. Wish you the absolute best in this next season, brother.
Yeah. And don't forget, anywhere on social media, you'll find me too.
Love it. Guys, you know where to go find Mike. Appreciate all your love and support. If you enjoyed this episode, listen, go share this, screenshot this, put this on LinkedIn, put this on Facebook, tag us, let us know that you enjoyed this show. Appreciate your support. We'll see you next week. Cheers.
Cheers.